Frank Dobson, and I've been the Labour MP for Holborn and St Pancras since 1979. Well, I think the main thing is to try to represent the interests and concerns of the people in the constituency and to try to deal with any problems that they've got. Of course, you can't represent the interests and concerns of everybody because people have different interests and different concerns, and sometimes those interests clash with one another, and what you've got to be is you've got to honestly say to the people you disagree with, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you, otherwise you end up in a real mess. Well, I think the key local priority for me has always been making sure that people have somewhere decent to live, and a child can't have a decent start in life unless they've got somewhere, a decent home to go back to, can't do their homework, don't get any security. The more overcrowded a house is, the more likely their children are to have accidents in the home. Well, and that takes me to Highgate, really, because Highgate played quite a role with the building of Highgate New Town and the housing there, but probably the most prominent thing that I ever got involved in directly in Highgate was to do with the buying up of the Lissenden Gardens estate, the mansion blocks there, when the local people were sick to death of a variety of private landlords and the threat of further private landlords, and in the end the council managed to buy up the properties from the then existing landlord, which, as the new leader of the council, I promised to do in a sort of post-French revolutionary speech I made on the tennis court oath on the tennis courts at Lissenden Gardens, when we promised that we would we wouldn't rest until we bought up those places. It led to even getting a complimentary reference to us in an editorial in the Times. Well, I think at the time when I was on the council, I think there was a greater recognition then by most people that for most ordinary people, if you wanted the things that make life decent, you couldn't just buy them for yourself. You had to work with other people and club together with other people to pay for them. Whereas I think there's a greater degree of sort of individualism now than there was then, some of which is understandable and acceptable, but some of it has got to the stage where it's I'm fine, pull up the ladder, which I don't think is a good attitude from the point of view of a decent society. Well, it's a very pleasant place to set eyes on, and there are some very, very nice people there as well. And there's still at least a villagey atmosphere on the streets in Highgate Village and the shops in Highgate Village. But also in the times when I was involved as leader of the council, there were a lot of people in Highgate of all political persuasions who were very keen to further the interests of everybody in Highgate. And I can remember with riding round in Mr. Budget Meakin's Rolls Royce, trying to save the great big house at the top of the heath there. And for those people who think that crime only started yesterday, he used to take the winged Venus he used to unscrew it off the bonnet of the Rolls while we had a walk around in case somebody nicked it while he wasn't there. They wouldn't have nicked the car, they'd just have nicked the symbol. Well, on the Whittington, my views are perfectly consistent. I campaigned while we were in opposition for improvements at the Whittington, because although it had excellent staff, a large chunk of the buildings were just a dump. And when I became Health Secretary, I was determined that things would change, and we started investing heavily in the Whittington so that a large amount of its buildings have been transformed, including the new accident and emergency department. So I'm damned if I'm going to go along with the idea of of closing it, because it's a crazy idea, because if only from the point of view of the cost. We've already invested the money in providing a decent accident and emergency unit there, and if people who need treatment are going to be diverted to a series of clinics in Islington that haven't yet been built, then we'd have to pay all over again for these spread out accident and emergency units, and I'm sure that they wouldn't do as good a job as the people are doing now at the Whittington. But fortunately, Mike O'Brien, the minister, who points out that it hasn't reached the stage of ministerial decisions, he's said twice now in the Commons he can't see any possible justification for closing the Whittington A&E, and I entirely agree with him. One of the problems, there is a dilemma. I mean, some people seem to think there isn't, but I have to recognise there is a dilemma from the point of view of the people who've got the job of refurbishing the tube. What they'd really like is for it to close down for a year and they could do all the work and we'd all have to do without it. And it clearly is going to have to close down from time to time. But I think that the option that they've come up with isn't very helpful to the people who depend on the line, and there are better options than the one that they're putting forward. Well, my view on the digital economy thing is coloured by representations I've received for quite a long time from artists and writers and performers who feel that they've been ripped off by people not paying royalties on their work. And as being in the creative industries, unless you're one of the stars, it's a very risky and underpaid business. I think that they need protecting. I think that the digital economy bill is a first stab at protecting them. I think also one of the things that's always the case is that legislation is catching up with what's happening in the world, and we haven't caught up. But I think that what I hope that the passage of the bill will mean that the service providers and the media companies will actually now sit down and thrash out an arrangement that's satisfactory to everybody. Well, I've always believed that we don't need to dumb down to involve people in the arts. In fact, if anything, dumbing down is not conducive either to the creative people or and their welfare, or to the people that we're trying to attract to appreciate the arts in a way that some don't at present and don't have the opportunity. So I think if you go to a school up to a certain age, all the children love painting.
Yeah.
Up to a certain age, they all like performing, and we've got to wipe out the barrier that descends at a certain time, particularly with working class boys who stop doing any of these creative things because they think it's soft and weedy, etc., etc., etc. But I've never believed that they aren't well capable of liking the theatre, understanding the theatre. I am Labour, but I'm not a party poodle, and I've been willing to stand out on things like Iraq or detaining people without charge. And if you want somebody of an independent mind but of a left-wing disposition, I'm your man.
Thank you very much.